debts aren't met, well then there will be consequences.
Question number 2, the Honourable Amy Adams.
My question is to the Minister of Finance. Has he seen NZIER's forecast indicating that the government will miss its self-imposed 21-22 debt target by $2 billion? And how does that reconcile with the Prime Minister's statement last week that these rules will not be relaxed?
Mr Speaker,
Robertson.
Speaker, I have seen a report of that forecast and I respectfully disagree with it.
How does he reconcile the Prime Minister's unequivocal statement that the debt rules would not be relaxed with his own comments on Q&A over the weekend, that even if the debt target was missed, he would still consider he had done, quote, a good job?
Well, Mr Speaker, there's absolutely no contradiction between those two positions. We will meet our debt targets. If we missed it to the extent that NZIER believe, it would be 20.6% instead of 20%. That would still be a very low debt target, and I might say lower than what the National Party reached in the last 6 years they were in office.
Is he aware that the 0.6% of GDP that NZIER are forecasting the government to miss the debt target by equates to $2 billion too much debt? And if so, does he really think that being out by $2 billion is him doing a good job?
Mr Speaker, as with the last government, this government measures our debt targets as a percentage of GDP. When we look at that percentage of GDP, 20% will be very low by international terms. If we were to be talking in dollar terms, then the last government might want to explain the $40 or $50 billion extra debt they racked up.
Why did he ignore Treasury advice that substantial borrowing by Crown entities would be seen as an attempt to circumvent his net debt target and could in fact undermine his own budget responsibility rules?
Mr Speaker, for the same reasons that the National Government ignored the same advice from Treasury when they established the facility for Housing New Zealand to borrow, at the time of which a minister in that government said, "We believe that external financing will deliver additional commercial discipline for Housing New Zealand." Once again, I agree with Amy Adams about that.
Well, given that he's so keen to draw parallels with the last government, is he aware that he actually inherited Crown entity debt of just 0.5% of GDP, but Budget 2018 blew this out more than 4 times to 2.2% or $6 billion?
Mr Speaker, what we have done is provide the facility for Housing New Zealand and NZTA to be able to get on with making up for the underinvestment from the previous government, because the actual reason we need the money is to build some houses.
So why did he ignore Treasury advice, again, that borrowing through Crown entities would have the same effect on fiscal resilience, the same effect on credit ratings as borrowing through core Crown mechanisms, but would cost the taxpayer tens of millions of dollars more in interest costs than borrowing through core Crown facilities?
Well, I do wonder whether the member asking the question could reflect on the following statement. Given Housing New Zealand's strong credit rating, a domestic wholesale bond program is expected to cater for the full financing requirement and, quote, represents the lowest cost option in terms of facility set-up costs and interest costs. Amy Adams, former finance minister.
I'm contemplating whether to actually address the question, but we'll go on to the next one. Question number 3, Gareth Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister